What is up, everybody? Welcome back here to the channel. We're talking about one of my favorite topics today. We're talking late round quarterback targets. So in redraft leagues, now that your season's coming up here, I know a lot of people draft this weekend or this week, and we're saying, hey, who are some late round guys out there, right? This is a viable strategy out there. It's one of those areas that we're looking for late round guys that you can build your team, and then you find that diamond in the rough late that can win you leagues. This is a strategy that's tried and true and tested out there, and we absolutely love it. So let's get into it. It's one of my favorite topics. I wrote an article about this out on our Substack you can find below, but I talked about 5 guys I like that are going, QB 15-ish or higher. I would say Caleb Williams right here, my first guy. He's gone a little bit earlier now as kind of the hype has grown, but he's still in that range right now. When you're looking at him, I think that when you're looking at camp, he's done a very good job. He's connected with Roman Dunze very well, him and DJ Moore. And I would say this, him and Keenan Allen's connection is probably pretty special. And I think that when you're looking at how this offense is built from the inside out and just the weapons that are built around him, DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, Dunze, Moore, when you're looking at those guys, Cole Kmet, they've done a very, very good job of building the perfect roster around him. And I think that those 3 guys, when we think of the wide receivers, they're talented enough to push Williams into that QB1 range. And if he is a QB1, then we're really talking about, we're excited about that, right? Like, I think that you're excited that, hey, low-end QB1, plus what the roster you can build around him, right? I think that is the exciting part. If he's going in this range of 9th round, think of all that talent you're going to be able to accumulate and stack up, and you could probably get a couple stacks. I bet you get DJ Moore as your wide receiver 2. I bet you can get Keenan Allen late if you wanted him to. Like, there's some maneuverability and some roster building that you can do with Caleb Williams. And I think when you look at it this way too, CJ Stroud, he did it last year at 18 fantasy points per game. He came in at QB9. You'd be pretty happy with a CJ Stroud type performance from Caleb Williams. And think about, I think the Bears are built better than the Texans were last year. And I absolutely love what they're going to be able to do there. And I think that with his, with some of the guys going earlier, I think Caleb gives you better roster flexibility, right? If you're thinking of like Lawrence, or you're thinking of, even some of those other guys like, Jordan Love, or some of those guys going earlier, I'd rather go positional player than I would take Caleb. Now, Caleb is still that elite guy in terms of like the 9th, 8th round. So you're still having to take him a little earlier than really the true late round guys. But I do think that he's a good break. He's a good tier there. The second guy, I'm still in on Aaron Rodgers. I think that when you're looking at it before his Achilles injury, here's how Rodgers finished over those seasons where he was a top 12 guy. QB6, QB10, QB3, QB6, and then QB13, right? Like, he was very, very good. Back-to-back MVPs, 2020, 21. And I think with the offense built around him, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, even Malachi Corley, Mike Williams, if they're healthy, like, these are the things that you like to see around him. Now, I think the biggest determining factor for Rodgers, he's not a rushing upside. And a lot of these guys late are not going to be rushing upside. That's why they go later, is that they improve their offensive line, right? PFF ranks him as top 5 right now unit. Again, all predicated on health. Tyron Smith is there, Morgan Moses, Elijah Vera Tucker's back from injury. If they have a top 5 line and this Jets offense has the elite weapons they do, it's hard for me not to see Rodgers finish as a low QB1. Like in overall, QB12 overall, somewhere around there. I could see him doing that. And I do know they're going to rely on Breece, but he's going to get targets as well. I think Rodgers is a fun kind of add going to that QB18 range where he can really kind of give you some flexibility to build around him. I think it's a fun add. I really do. Now, when you look at the next guy, Kirk Cousins, they're going to be a lot of the same guys in terms of late round guys, but I do like Kirk Cousins, right? QB19, I think he's a fun late round dude there. And really, arguably, he had one of the best seasons of his career last year before the Achilles injury. He was QB8 in fantasy points per game, and he could have finished higher. I think he probably would have been a top 5 guy. Now, here's the other thing. It's not an entirely new system that he's playing in, right? Zach Robinson's the OC there, but he comes from Kevin O'Connell's kind of scheme from the McVay coaching tree. So they've already talked about, hey, Cousins is already very comfort level in that offense. He has that shared kind of experience in the offensive system. So there's not been something that he's had to really relearn. He's got a great offensive weapons around him. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney is underrated wide receiver too. I think Darnell Mooney is one of those guys that I don't think gives him enough love out there. I think when you're looking at this roster, I know Justin Jefferson was amazing, so I'm not trying to say he's not. But when you look at what they had last year, right, with Hawk, Jefferson, Addison, Pitts, if he lives up to his potential, can be better than Hawkinson. No one's going to touch, Justin Jefferson. But I think Drake London can ascend to be a top 12 guy. I think Darnell Mooney's the X factor. Then you got Bijan Robinson as well. This offense could be one of the best offenses in the NFC, and they're going to compete for a division title. So give me Kirk Cousins. I think he's a heck of a value right now going out of QB19 range. The next guy I've been pounding the table for is Matt Stafford. I've been talking about it in Dynasty. I've been talking about it in Redraft. I think that the Rams could have a top 5 offense. And I firmly believe that as long as Puka Nacua is healthy, when he ended last year. So here's how he ended last year. He averaged 19 fantasy points per game from weeks 11 to 17. He finished QB9. That's the Stafford that we want. Improved offensive line that we like to see there. Alaric Jackson's going to be starting left tackle. Jonah Jackson, Steve Avila, Kevin Dotson, Rob Havenstein. That line is looking very, very good. I think that when you think of it, this is the first time they've really had a solid offensive line, just like they did down the stretch. You have to love that. I think 2 top 10 receivers in Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. And I'm not one of those guys that's saying Cooper Kupp's dead. I don't believe that. I think that he could still have a very, very productive season this year. Demarcus Robinson is fun. Colby Parkinson's been playing out of his mind. I think that will kind of alleviate some of that tight end areas that they need to fix there. When you're looking at just the running backs, obviously Blake Corum, you have Jordan Whittington, my guy, glue guy. If you've been watching me for years, I talk about Jordan Whittington being a glue guy. He's a glue guy wide receiver that I think is going to make some noise this year. And I think Stafford gives Stafford kind of that go-to guy if he's going to get out there, a guy that can move the chains. I think they'd be top 5. And you know what? Like I said in the article, like I talk about, one easy rule to follow in fantasy football, bet on a Sean McVay and his offense, right? You bet on that offense, you bet on that scheme, because Stafford could really elevate that team. And that's what you're looking for. And then the last guy that I don't mind taking a shot on, I try to go deeper here, right? I was looking at, okay, what is the deepest level guy that I feel comfortable taking as my QB1 on my fantasy team? And it's Baker Mayfield. I think that, last year over 4,000 yards, 28 passing touchdowns, QB10 overall, QB20 in points per game. So it wasn't amazing there, but first full season healthy since 2020. You have to like that. He had 8 top 12 finishes last year and finished no lower than QB2 outside of 2 games. So while he was QB20 in points per game for the season, he still had 8 top 12 finishes, and he didn't finish lower than QB2. So it was consistent, right? And when you look at these guys, if you're drafting them this late, 14th round, you're looking for that consistent guy that's not going to give you those dud weeks, right? You have a roster, if you built the roster right, if you're able to navigate the injuries pretty well early, that can just needs a guy, game manager, baby. Give me a Trent Dilfer type. I don't know how many of you guys know who Trent Dilfer was. It literally led the Ravens to a Super Bowl, but just based on his defense. But that's how this mindset is. Baker Mayfield, just go out there, give me QB2 numbers. I got the squad behind me. I drafted well. I have those guys that kind of lead me there. I think Chris Godwin coming off his ACL from a year removed from that is going to look really good. I think Mike Evans, again, Mike Evans is Mike Evans. We love that. And I do think that when you're looking at his new offensive coordinator, Liam Cohen, I'm not a big fan of Liam Cohen, but they, had a lot of 11 personnel with Liam Cohen being there. And the Buccaneers hovered around 65%, but we should probably see that to 90%, right? A lot of 3-by-1 formations. And I think a big player in this, an X factor to this offense is rookie wide receiver Jalen McMillan. I've loved McMillan, from Devy perspective for a long time. I think those guys with Kate Otten, who I think is a sleeper as well at the tight end position, man, Baker Mayfield's got it kind of made, right? Where we can see him coming in there with Rachaad White, and you're looking at this roster saying, hey, Bucky Irving can catch passes as well. Maybe Baker's just that guy, that solid QB2 guy. I don't expect QB1 numbers from Baker. Those other guys, I think they can be QB1s. I think they can be low end, but I do think Baker can finish around that QB12 consistently. He might be more consistent than some of the other guys because of the way the offense is built. So Baker Mayfield to me is a great late round target that you can kind of target in your redraft leagues. So appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, hit that like and subscribe button. Leave it in the comments. What do you think? Who are your top 5 guys? Which one of these guys are you willing to pick in your leagues? Or which one of these guys you kind of staying away from because you just don't believe in their talent? I would say the riskiest guy in terms of what I went over, probably Aaron Rodgers because of lack of rushing upside and with that Achilles. But I do think that, these other guys later are fun, consistent picks that you can win your leagues with. So appreciate you guys. See you guys next time.